Well, good evening, little masters, and welcome to episode 327 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where never before has Alan claimed a victory over James in a contest of words.
Not sure you'll be breaking that streak anytime soon.
Oh, confident, I see.
Folks, I'm James Tauber, the Sage of the South, and I'm here with the Man of the West, who I'm fairly sure is neither evil-eyed, black-handed, bow-legged, flint-hearted, claw-fingered, foul-bellied, nor bloodthirsty. Alan Sisto.
Best 4 out of 7, James? Folks, join us as Treebeard proves to be as lousy a jailer as Thranduil in the second of our 3 episodes on Mini Partings, the 6th chapter in Book 6 of The Lord of the Rings.
Now, word contests aside, Alan, I would totally go on a road trip with you to visit some caves and forests.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%. Caves first. Aglarond
Caves
first.
Then that's the deal. Absolutely. Okay. No matter how you arrived, folks, you're all welcome here in the common room.
Yeah.
At the Prancing Pony podcast, we're reading and talking our way through Middle-earth with plenty of speculation and bad jokes along the way.
That's right. We love our deep dives into the lore. We love discussing our favorite themes and a whole lot more.
But we try to keep it light and fun, like a couple of friends chatting at the pub. And we're glad you've joined us.
Indeed, and I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's chapter discussion, it's time to make room on your shelves as we talk about some kingly gifts.
Yes, this is possibly the biggest news so far this year in Tolkien publishing.
Definitely.
It's something that's been talked about as a possibility for years. I know a lot of people have said how much they wish HarperCollins would do a collected poetry volume.
Yes.
And it turns out it's going to be 3 volumes, and it's coming out in September this year.
I asked for 1. They gave me 3. It is being edited by none other than Wayne Hammond and Christina Scull. Now, Wayne and Christina generated quite a bit of speculation a few months back. They'd mentioned on their blog they were working on something big. There'd been some speculation that it might be more letters, maybe even including some by Christopher Tolkien. And we know they're interested in doing something on Pauline Baynes as well, but I think everyone is thrilled that this is the project.
Absolutely. Now, Ellen, I know you've said that when you were younger, you used to skip the poetry, and I
By
did
younger,
too.
I mean in my 40s? Yeah.
But I absolutely did too. But I think both of us have really come to appreciate just how wonderful the poetry is and how central it is to Tolkien's creative
Oh,
output.
absolutely. I mean, it really is. And I think for me, it was reading aloud is what changed my mind. It's easier to skip the poetry when you're reading silently, or at least to just skim it. But the musicality of the text, even the prose, right? I mean, the prose gets like this. It just comes alive when you read it out loud, and the poetry becomes magical, especially the alliterative verse, which I've just come to adore.
Yeah. After I taught through the 12 volumes of the History of Middle-earth last year, people have often asked me, do I have a favorite volume? I can't pick a favorite volume,
That's
right?
hard.
But the volume that surprised me most in terms of how much fun I had teaching it was volume 3, The Lays of Beleriand.
Yeah.
And it was that opportunity to read out loud the poems. There's something about the emotion of alliterative verse when you read it out loud. And in that volume, you get things like Feanor's oath in that form, and it is just magical.
Oh, it really is. Be he friend or foe or foul offspring of Morgoth Bauglir, be he mortal dark that in after days on earth shall dwell, shall know law nor love nor league of gods, no might nor mercy, not moveless fate, defend him forever from the fierce vengeance of the sons of Feanor. Whoso seize or steal or finding keep the fair enchanted globes of crystal whose glory dies not, the Silmarills we have sworn forever. Ha ha ha. Love that stuff. I mean, stupid oath, really good poetry. Right? So what do we know, James, about the collected poems of J.R.R. Tolkien, besides the fact that it's going to be coming out September 12th as a 3-volume box set? Well, we know some, right? The press release from HarperCollins tells us the world-renowned Tolkien scholars, Christina Scull and Wayne G. Hammond, provide the stories behind and analysis of each poem, as well as revealing the extraordinary amount of work that Tolkien devoted to every one, creating a landmark new publication which confirms that J.R.R. Tolkien was as fine a poet as he was a writer.
And in the press release, Wayne and Christina say, it's been an honour to prepare, at Christopher Tolkien's invitation, these volumes of his father's poems, putting into print many previously unpublished works, and ensuring that Tolkien's talent for poetry becomes more widely known. They continue. Charged at first to review only his early poems, we soon saw the benefits of examining his entire poetic opus across 6 decades, vast though it is, with hundreds of printed and manuscript sources, and of showing its evolution with comments in the manner of Christopher's magisterial History of Middle-earth series. Not long before his death, we were able to send Christopher a trial portion of the book, which he praised as remarkable and immensely desirable. So this is just wonderful that Christopher blessed this and actually got to see early drafts before he passed away. And that it's not just a collection of poems, right? This is going to be in the style of the History of Middle-earth in terms of the analysis and comparison of versions.
Development between different... Oh, that's going to be great. But I think what you said there is what makes me so happy, that Christopher was not only aware that it was his invitation that they work on this. Not only did he know it was happening, but he actually had a chance to see early versions of the book before he passed away. That's beautiful to me, and I'm so glad that that happened. So Chris Smith, he's the Tolkien publishing director over at HarperCollins. He says, poetry runs like a vein of mithril through all the books that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote. He delighted in language and storytelling, and the almost 200 poems contained in this collection reveal him at his creative best in verse. Within this new 3-volume set, there are worlds in miniature to be discovered and reveled in, populated with unforgettable characters and settings both familiar and full of wonder.
Now, Wayne and Christina have said that, and I quote, the printed text will run to more than 1,500 pages.
That makes me so excited.
And that depending on how you count them, there are at least 240 discrete poems presented in 195 entries and 5 appendices.
Wow.
So those 195 entries must be the almost 200 poems that Chris Smith refers to in the press release.
Okay.
And over on the Tolkien Collector's Guide, Wayne and Christina have clarified that among the poems we include, 77 have not been published before in any form. That's a third.
77 brand
have
new
not
poems.
been published in any form, or only in a few lines of them have appeared, for example, in Carpenter's biography. It's going to be amazing. Ellen, is there anything that you're looking forward to in particular?
All 77 of the unpublished ones?
Of the new stuff, yeah.
I love alliterative verse, so more alliterative verse would be great. We just got through, you and I in our last episode got through Theoden's funeral, and there's a moment where the bard is said to sing this song, which is in alliterative verse because it's in Rohan. Basically the history of Rohan from the first Kings of the Mark all the way down. I would love it if that was, I'm sure it's not, but I would love it if that were an alliterative poem.
We can hope.
Or there's so many pieces that he hints at that in this piece, and you're like, well, where is this piece? And the piece doesn't exist. But in trying to dig for those, what I end up finding is Christopher Tolkien in History of Middle-earth saying, yeah, my father refers to this, but it doesn't exist. So I don't think those will be in there. They're still textual ruins. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, we would love to hear what you, our listeners, are most looking forward to as well. So please reach out and let us know. I am really excited to get my hands on this, even if I have to say I'm not sure where I'm going to fit another 3 volumes on my shelf. It's starting to become a problem. James, let's get into tonight's reading. Would you please lead us off?
I would be delighted to. Now the guests were ready, and they drank the stirrup cup. And with great praise and friendship they departed, and came at length to Helm's Deep. And there they rested 2 days. Then Legolas repaid his promise to Gimli, and went with him to the glittering caves. And where they returned, he was silent, and would say only that Gimli alone could find words to speak of them. And never before has a dwarf claimed a victory over an elf in a contest of words, he said. Now, therefore, let us go to Fangorn and set the score right. From Deeping Combe they rode to Isengard, and saw how the Ents had busied themselves. All the stone circle had been thrown down and removed, and the land within was made into a garden filled with orchards and trees, and a stream ran through it. But in the midst of all there was a lake of clear water, and out of it the Tower of Orthanc rose still, tall and impregnable, and its black rock was mirrored in the pool. For a while the travellers sat where once the old gates of Isengard had stood, and there were now 2 tall trees like sentinels at the beginning of a green-bordered path that ran towards Orthanc. And they looked in wonder at the work that had been done, but no living thing could they see far or near. But presently they heard a voice calling, "Whom, hom, whom, hom." And there came Treebeard striding down the path to greet them, with Quickbeam at his side. "Welcome to the Tree Garth of Orthanc," he said. "I knew that you were coming, but I was at work up the valley. There is much still to be done. But you have not been idle either away in the south and the east, I hear, and all that I hear is good, very good." Then Treebeard praised all their deeds, of which he seemed to have full knowledge.
Treebeard knows a lot. So, setting the stage at the beginning of the reading, we're in Edoras after the funeral of King Theoden from last episode, the feast and the hailing of Eomer as the new king of Rohan, as well as the announcement of the betrothal of Faramir and Eowyn. There is a lot going on right now.
Yeah, and the new king and his sister have given Merry that silver horn from the hoard of Scuther the Worm that dates back at least 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're caught up to this moment.
Yeah.
The guests are ready and are said to have drank the stirrup cup.
Now, this is a phrase that actually doesn't date back as far as one might think. I thought, it feels Rohirric, and so it must be an Old English term. But it turns out the stirrup cup was usually a cup of wine handed to a rider who is already on horseback, so feet in the stirrups, right? That's why it's the stirrup cup, getting ready to head out on a journey. It's a parting glass. Now, these days, it's a traditional drink, usually port or sherry, offered to a huntsman before the hunt. It's drunk quickly and returned to the server. But here's the interesting thing. The OED only dates the term to 1681. That's practically yesterday for Tolkien.
Yeah, I mean, it's modern English. Days, not even Middle English.
No, it really isn't. It's just interesting. The stirrup cup just felt so Old English.
It sounds it, doesn't it? Yeah, I would have thought so too.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the tradition goes back, but in my research, the stuff I found,
that term.
Yeah, exactly. That term only dates to 1681. The OED was very clear. There was a Scottish term that was similar that meant drink at the door, but that didn't go back any further than that, really. So it seems like this is just a nice little modern phrase that Tolkien was able to fit in with the Rohirrim.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was wondering how you drink out of a stirrup, but it makes more sense. It's the drink you have while you're in the stirrups.
Right.
That makes
exactly.
much more sense.
Yeah, much more sense.
Anyway, the party leaves, and keep in mind that Faramir and Imrahil remain behind,
right,
as did Arwen.
Yeah.
So it's Elrond and his sons, Galadriel, Celeborn, and the Galadhrim.
Right.
Aragorn and his knights, Gandalf, Legolas, Gimli, and the hobbits.
That's right.
Now, according to the chronology of The Lord of the Rings, they leave Edoras on August 14th. Mm-hmm. That's 4 days after the funeral, the feast, and the betrothal announcement.
Right. The Tale of Years does tell us that they arrived at Helm's Deep on August 18th, and the chronology adds that it was evening when they did get there.
And Legolas and Gimli visit the Glittering Caves the next day, August 19th, according to the chronology. And we're going to take a moment to do the same.
Oh, we will. Yes.
Legolas, the eternal poet, with a beautiful word for everything, is left completely speechless, confessing that only Gimli has the ability to find the right words.
That's right. Now, Gimli, I sort of get the feeling he's a little different than other dwarves, you know? I mean, his rhetorical skill is off the charts, right? Recall, even Galadriel was impressed by his speechcraft in Farewell to Lorien. "And what gift would a dwarf ask of the elves?" said Galadriel, turning to Gimli. "None, lady," answered Gimli. "It is enough for me to have seen the Lady of the Galadhrim, and to have heard her gentle words." "Hear, all ye elves," she cried to those about her. "Let none say again that dwarves are grasping and ungracious. Yet surely, Gimli, son of Glóin, you desire something that I could give. Name it, I bid you. You shall not be the only guest without a gift." "There is nothing, Lady Galadriel," said Gimli, bowing low and stammering. "Nothing, unless it is permitted to ask, nay, to name a single strand of your hair which surpasses the gold of the earth as the stars surpass the gems of the mine. I do not ask for such a gift, but it commanded me to name my desire." The elves stirred and murmured with astonishment, and Celeborn gazed at the dwarf in wonder. But the lady smiled. "It is said that the skill of the dwarves is in their hands," rather than in their tongues, she said. Yet that is not true of Gimli, for none have ever made to me a request so bold and yet so courteous. Man, Gimli, he's got the rizz going, man. As my 12-year-old would say.
Yes. Aglarond was indeed truly beautiful.
I mean, it really does. Yeah. So Gimli does have the ability to put it to words. Yeah.
He does. And here are Gimli's words about it. No dwarf could be unmoved by such loveliness. None of Durin's race could mine those caves for stones or ore, not if diamonds and gold could be got there. Do you cut down groves of blossoming trees in the springtime for firewood? We would tend these glades of flowering stone, not quarry them. With cautious skill, tap by tap, a small chip of rock and no more, perhaps, in a whole anxious day. So we could work, and as the years went by, we should open up new ways and display far chambers that are still dark, glimpsed only as a void beyond fissures in the rock. And lights, Legolas. We should make lights, such lamps as once shone in Khazad-dûm, and when we wished we would drive away the night that has slain there since the hills were made, and when we desired rest, we would let the night return.
Oh, Gimli. He definitely has a way with words. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love John Rhys Davies' portrayal of Gimli in the films, but he's very much comic relief and not this incredibly charismatic, flowery speech. I mean, the glades of flowering stone. I mean, what a turn of phrase that is, right?
Yeah.
Stone doesn't flower, Gimli. Aye, but yes, it does.
It does.
Those weren't the only flowery words, speaking of which, that Gimli had either. And here's what he added later when he was describing Aglarond as one of the marvels of the northern world. Do you think those halls are fair where your king dwells under the hill in Mirkwood, and dwarves helped in their making long ago? They are but hovels compared with the caverns I have seen here. Immeasurable halls filled with an everlasting music of water that tinkles into pools as fair as Kheled Zaram in the starlight. And Legolas, when the torches are kindled and men walk on the sandy floors under the echoing domes, then, Legolas, gems and crystals and veins of precious ore glint in the polished walls, and the light glows through folded marbles, shell-like, translucent as the living hands of Queen Galadriel. There are columns of white and saffron and dawn rose, Legolas, fluted and twisted into dreamlike forms. They spring up from many-colored floors to meet the glistening pendants of the roof. Wings, ropes, curtains fine as frozen clouds, spears, banners, pinnacles of suspended palaces. Still lakes mirror them. A glimmering world looks up from dark pools covered with clear glass. Cities, such as the mind of Durin could scarce have imagined in his sleep, stretch on through avenues and pillared courts, on into the dark recesses where no light can come. And plink, a silver drop falls, and the round wrinkles in the glass make all the towers bend and waver like weeds and corals in a grotto of the sea. Then evening comes. They fade and twinkle out. The torches pass on into another chamber and another dream. And as chamber after chamber, Legolas, hall opening out of hall, dome after dome, stair beyond stair, and still the winding paths lead on into the mountain's heart. Happy was the chance that drove me there. It makes me weep to leave them. Oh, man.
Wow.
You just feel it. So much passion from him, right?
Yeah.
He'd make a great real estate agent.
Location.
Mm-hmm. It's such a cozy kitchen, like dark pools covered with clear glass do you see? I mean, I'm telling you.
And you can use this as a fourth bedroom.
I love it. That's great.
Anyway, Gimli was so moved by the beauty of this place that he returned.
Of course.
As we'll read in Appendix A, which I'm guessing will be next season.
Yeah.
After the fall of Sauron, Gimli brought south a part of the dwarf folk of Erebor.
Yeah.
And he became Lord of the Glittering Caves.
That's right.
And while many of the places in Middle-earth seem directly inspired by real-world places, like Lauterbrunnen and Imladris, for example, Tolkien told us himself that this was based on a real-world place.
That's right. In letter number 321, which he wrote in 1971, Tolkien writes, I was most pleased by your reference to the description of glittering caves. No other critic, I think, has picked it out for special mention. It may interest you to know that the passage was based on the caves in Cheddar Gorge and was written just after I had revisited these in 1940, but was still colored by my memory of them much earlier before they became so commercialized. I had been there during my honeymoon nearly 30 years before.
John Garth's beautiful book, The Worlds of J.R.R. Tolkien, has more on the Cheddar Caves, including a couple of photos. If you've got it, look up on pages 98 and 99.
Right.
If you don't have the book, be sure to use our links to get it. It is an absolutely fantastic book.
It is. It's a must-have for sure.
Okay, lengthy sidebar on the Glittering Caves aside, Legolas wants to head to Fangorn to set the score right.
That's right.
Since there were mutual promises made back when they were here the first time.
But first, Isengard. The chronology says they leave Helm's Deep on August 21st, 2 days after that visit to Aglarond. And they arrive at Isengard the next day, so now we're on August 22nd.
So first thing they all notice is how busy the Ents have been. The last time they were here, when there was the parley with Saruman, it was March 5th. More than 5 months have passed. During that time, the Ents have torn down the wall of Isengard, which we read about back in The Road to Isengard, Book 3, Chapter 8. A great ring wall of stone, like towering cliffs, stood out from the shelter of the mountainside, from which it ran and then returned again. One entrance only was there made in it. A great arch delved in the southern wall. Here, through the black rock, a long tunnel had been hewn, closed at either end with mighty doors of iron.
And that whole wall is gone. And now Isengard itself has been turned into a garden, orchards and trees. And I have to say, it's interesting that you've done this garden/orchard bit. I mean, that sort of seems like the way of the Entwives and almost part of the reason for their estrangement. Remember, they loved order and well-tended stuff, and the Ents liked more of the wild forest.
Yeah, it is interesting that it is
it's almost like lesson learned in a way.
Maybe.
I don't know. It's just one of those things, yeah.
And the Isen River runs through it, but there's a lake in the middle now surrounding Orthanc.
That's right. Instead of a gate through the wall, there are a pair of trees-like sentinels. I have to wonder if they're actually trees and not huarns, but they don't tell us, that indicate the start of a path toward the tower. And the group here, the company, can't see any Ents or huarns or anything living really within sight, but they hear that familiar voice.
Whom hum.
Whom hum. The voice supposedly modeled after C.S. Lewis, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes, yes. Treebeard and Quickbeam welcome them to the Tree Garth of Orthanc. Now, a garth, aside from being a noted Tolkien scholar, is a word that can mean a grassy quadrangle surrounded by cloisters, a clearing in the woods, or a yard, a garden.
Right. And yard, you might hear that word, right? It's cognate with Old English yard, G-E-A-R-D, meaning enclosure or yard, but also region or land, as in Midden Yard, Middle Earth. So, of course, it's also a flip the script of Isengard, since guard in that name comes from the same root. So now it's a tree yard instead of an iron enclosure.
Treebeard, of course, knew they were coming.
Yeah.
They probably passed some huarns that sent a message his way. Who knows?
Yeah, I know. He just knows stuff, man.
He knows stuff. And though he's been busy at work with his Ents here at Treegarth, he notes that Gandalf, Aragorn, and the rest have also been busy. Yeah. Somehow he seems to know everything.
Right. How is that possible? How does he know all the things that happened? He's got messengers somewhere. Birds, maybe. I don't know. I don't really have any speculation to offer here. I don't know how he gets his news.
No.
But he does seem to know a lot, right? I mean, he knew they were coming, and he's known at least,
what they've achieved.
Deeds. Yeah, he knows the ring was destroyed. He knows about all of this stuff. But that's Fangorn, that's Treebeard for you. He knows quite a bit. What he doesn't know is what we're going to talk about as soon as we come back from the break. Now, we'll get back to Treebeard in time for a confession in just a moment. But first, we want to remind you that there's a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast than just us.
The PPP has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with great questions and discussions across all our social media spaces. Check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
On Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony podcast. Follow the page to get the news and episode releases, but you're going to want to join the group to get involved in some really great discussions.
Or if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/prancingponypod. On Twitter and Instagram, we're simply at prancingponypod.
That's right. And don't forget that you can get daily Tolkien content now when you subscribe to today's Tolkien Times on YouTube and all your favorite podcast apps. It's my short format daily show with everything from Word Nerd Wednesday to Silmarillion Saturday. Be sure to check it out at youtube.com/@TolkienTimes and follow @TolkienTimes on all your social media.
You're doing a really great job, by the way, with Tolkien
thank you.
Times. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It's totally different, and I like that it gets me out of the chapter that I'm buried in for the PPP.
Yes.
And I get to experience some more things in the Legendarium. It's really fun.
Yeah, I do encourage everyone to check it out and subscribe.
Thank you.
Now, let's get back to reading. Alan, will you take us back to Treebeard?
I will indeed. And at long last he stopped and looked long at Gandalf. "Well, come now," he said. "You have proved mightiest, and all your labors have gone well. Where now would you be going, and why do you come here?" "To see how your work goes, my friend," said Gandalf, "and to thank you for your aid in all that has been achieved." Well, that is fair enough," said Treebeard, "for to be sure, Ents have played their part. And not only in dealing with that accursed tree slayer that dwelt here, but there was a great inrush of those evil-eyed, black-handed, bow-legged, flint-hearted, claw-fingered, foul-bellied, bloodthirsty Morramite Sinca Honda, whom, well, since you are hasty folk, and their full name is as long as years of torment, those vermin of orcs, they came over the river and down from the north, and all round the wood of Laurel and Dornan, which they could not get into, thanks to the great ones who are here." He bowed to the Lord and Lady of Lorien. "And these same foul creatures were more than surprised to meet us out on the wold, for they had not heard of us before, though that might be said also of better folk. And not many will remember us, for not many escaped us alive, and the river had most of those. But it was well for you, for if they had not met us, then the king of the grassland would not have ridden far, and if he had, there would have been no home to return to." "We know it well," said Aragorn, "and never shall it be forgotten in Minas Tirith or in Edoras." "Never is too long a word even for me," said Treebeard. "Not while your kingdoms last, you mean. But they will have to last long indeed to seem long to Ents." "The new age begins," said Gandalf, "and in this age it may well prove that the kingdoms of men shall outlast you, Fangorn, my friend. But now come, tell me, what of the task that I set you? How is Saruman? Is he not weary of all thank yet? For I do not suppose that he will think you have improved the view from his windows." Oh, man.
Indeed, and while he praises all their deeds, he eventually comes to focus on his old friend Gandalf.
Yeah.
Telling him that he's proved mightiest and his work has been done.
Yes.
So, where are you headed and why stop here?
I think he's already feeling a bit maybe sheepish about having let Saruman go. What are you doing here, boss?
What are you doing here? No, nothing here. No.
Nothing going on. Nothing to see here.
Move along. Yeah, so Gandalf tells him there are two reasons. We want to check in with your efforts and to thank Treebeard and the Ents. After all, without them, Rohan doesn't survive and come to Gondor's aid.
That's right. And Treebeard actually gives us a little more story here on that. The Ents didn't just solve the Saruman problem back when Rohan was being attacked. I mean, they did. But they've also solved a previously unknown orc problem. It's been mentioned before on at least one Meanwhile Elsewhere in Middle-earth segment. But on March 11th, the eastern part of Rohan was invaded from the north. But the next day, the Ents defeated the invaders. Now, nothing more is told about the battle itself except what Treebeard says here. Yeah,
a bit before we get to Treebeard's report, let's look at the language here. Borarum is not actually a word in Words and Phrases from Palmer Elder Lamberon 17.
That's
it's
right. Palmer 17.
Do we drink for that? I don't know.
Just about. That's one of those
we
ones
probably
where,
should.
Yeah.
It's glossed as an entish noise of disgust.
I love that.
Then we get the string of words that so often characterizes the Entish way of thinking and communicating, ending with the last two words, Morimaite Sinka Honda, which are actually Quenya words.
That's right. Now, interestingly, in an early draft that Christopher tells us about in Sauron Defeated, Treebeard's Curse of the Orcs was actually all Quenya. Henulka Moramaite Quinka Telko Tinga Hondo Rakalepta Saurikumba, or something like that.
we were talking before about how Tolkien reads that kind of stuff quite quickly.
Very quickly. Yeah. I mean, it would be Henulka Mora Mighty Quinketel Kotinga Honda Rakalepta Saurikumba.
Yeah, say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, exactly. And it really looks more Finnish here, doesn't it?
I mean, absolutely.
Yes. And it sounds more Finnish. You can really see the Finnish influence in Quenya in that early stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Rakalepta Sauri. Yeah, wow. Yeah. It's
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to say. Again, coming back to this idea that reading aloud just completely heightens the experience of Tolkien. Yeah. We're also given a translation of those, and big surprise, they mean exactly the words that we have here.
Exactly.
With the exception of bloodthirsty, which isn't in the original Quenya list of curses.
That's right. But that means that Treebeard is repeating himself because he does say Moramaite Sinka Honda, and that means black-handed, flint-hearted, which he's already said. But he stops before taking the next hour and a half to name the orcs, remembering that we are all hasty folks.
Before we go on, please note that, as Gandalf certainly will, Treebeard already refers to Saruman in the past tense.
You caught that, yeah.
Yeah, that accursed tree slayer that dwelt here.
Yeah. And it's not the last time, and Gandalf doesn't say anything about it yet, but he sure does take note. And then we get the report of the battle, right? First, that these orcs came over the Anduin from the north, around Lothlorien, or Lorelindoriden, as Treebeard beautifully calls it. But they couldn't get in. They had to go around it. They had to flank the forest, and hat tip to Galadriel and Celeborn for that.
Yep. Also, having appeared in an earlier Meanwhile Elsewhere in Middle-earth segment, the Tale of Years says that 3 attacks were made on Lothlorien. March 11th, 15th and 22nd.
That's right.
All came from Dol Guldur and were repelled thanks to, quote, the valor of the elven people and the power that dwelt there, which was too much for anyone else unless Sauron had come there himself.
Right, because, of course, Galadriel's ring. Now, this raiding party of orcs clearly expected the lands of Rohan to be empty. Now, I don't know, maybe they'd heard word of the ride of the Rohirrim. They knew the mark wouldn't be protected. Turns out they were wrong, quite wrong. The Ents, and I would imagine the Huorns were still with them as well, were there and eliminated most of the enemy force with the river taking what was left.
And if this hadn't happened, either the Rohirrim would have been attacked from their flank on the ride to Minas Tirith, or at best, Aemir would have returned to a destroyed homeland.
Oh, man, I can't even imagine. I mean, women and children, all the people they had to leave behind, it would have literally just, it would have been the end of Rohan as a country, for sure.
And Aragorn knows this and says that it will never be forgotten in either Gondor or Rohan.
Word of advice, Aragorn, maybe it's better not to use terms like that around beings that have been in existence since the dawn of time or of Middle-earth. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Aragorn is old, but he's not Ent old.
No, he's not.
So there's this little bit about not while your kingdoms last. And the retort from Gandalf that with the beginning of the Fourth Age, men's nations might outlast even Fangorn.
That's interesting. I mean, clearly realms of men as a whole would. I mean, we're still around, and I don't know about you, but I haven't seen any Ents lately. But would a single particular realm outlive Treebeard? I mean, Fangorn's ancient. There's no reason to think he's going to be dying anytime soon. I don't know. What do you think? Yeah,
although I wonder if this is somewhat of a negative look forward to the dominion of men and the unfortunate effect that would have on the forest. Yeah,
that's a very good point. Yeah.
But let's get to why we're really here. Yeah. Gandalf wants to know how Saruman
How's that Saruman guy? Yeah.
And whether he's tired of being a prisoner in his own tower.
Not anymore.
Yeah. In the paragraph we skipped, Treebeard starts to do the slightly shifty thing of not directly answering the question.
He sure does. And Merry, of course, who spent a lot of time with Treebeard, notices this. The text says he thinks it's almost a cunning look. I love it. So Treebeard, doing his thing, he gives an answer, but not the answer. In fact, he goes directly to Gandalf's second question, which honestly seemed a bit rhetorical. I mean, clearly Gandalf just wants a status update, and the most important status is not here anymore.
Right. He could have mentioned that up front.
Yeah. Things that would have been nice to know yesterday.
Exactly. Yeah, note that immediately Treebeard speaks of Saruman in the past tense.
Yeah.
He was weary of Orthanc, sure, but he was more weary of Treebeard's voice. Treebeard, not known for his brevity, has been regaling Saruman with stories.
That's right. And we're going to learn a little bit more about those stories next as you read the next passage.
He came to his window and listened, because he could not get news in any other way. And though he hated the news, he was greedy to have it, and I saw that he heard it all. But I added a great many things to the news that it was good for him to think of. He grew very weary. He always was hasty. That was his ruin. I observe, my good Fangorn, said Gandalf, that with great care you say dwelt, was, grew. What about is? Is he dead? No, not dead, so far as I know, said Treebeard. But he is gone. Yes, he is gone 7 days. I let him go. There was little left of him when he crawled out. And as for that worm creature of his, he was like a pale shadow. Now do not tell me, Gandalf, that I promised to keep him safe, for I know it. But things have changed since then, and I kept him until he was safe from doing any more harm. You should know that, above all, I hate the caging of live things, and I will not keep even such creatures as these caged beyond great need. A snake without fangs may crawl where he will. You may be right, said Gandalf, but this snake had still one tooth left, I think. He had the poison of his voice, and I guess that he persuaded you, even you, Treebeard, knowing the soft spot in your heart. Well, he is gone, and there is no more to be said. But the Tower of Orthanc now goes back to the king to whom it belongs, though maybe he will not need it. That will be seen later, said Aragorn. But I will give to Ents all this valley, to do with as they will, so long as they keep a watch upon Orthanc, and see that none enter it without my leave. It is locked, said Treebeard. I made Saruman lock it and give me the keys. Quickbeam has them. Quickbeam bowed like a tree bending in the wind and handed to Aragorn 2 great black keys of intricate shape, joined by a ring of steel. Now I thank you once more, said Aragorn, and I bid you farewell. May your forest grow again in peace. When this valley is filled, there is room and to spare west of the mountains, where once you walked, long ago. Treebeard's face became sad. Forests may grow, he said. Woods may spread, but not Ents. There are no Entings. Yet maybe there is now more hope in your search, said Aragorn. Lands will lie open to your eastward that have long been closed. But Treebeard shook his head and said, It is far to go, and there are too many men there in these days. But I am forgetting my manners. Will you stay here and rest a while? And maybe there are some that would be pleased to pass through Fangorn Forest, and so shorten their road home. He looked at Celeborn and Galadriel. But all save Legolas said that they must now take their leave and depart either south or west. "Come, Gimli," said Legolas. "Now by Fangorn's leave I will visit the deep places of the Entwood and see such trees as are nowhere else to be found in Middle-earth. You shall come with me and keep your word, and thus we will journey on together to our own lands in Mirkwood and beyond." To this Gimli agreed, though with no great delight, it seemed. "Here, then, at last, comes the ending of the Fellowship of the Ring," said Aragorn.
Oh, that part makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
So going back, we did skip a tiny bit at the start when Gandalf seemed to be a bit curious. Why did Saruman even listen to you telling him stories? By the way, did you even go into Orthanc? Because that would be a bad idea.
Back to where we read, Treebeard explains that it's because he was the only way that Saruman could get word of the outside world.
Absolutely.
It may not have been good news,
no,
but he wanted to know it, so he listened.
Of course. And I love it. Treebeard did a little propaganda work as well. I added a great many things to the news that it was good for him to think of. He's not exactly a journalist here. I love it. He continues with this past tense thing that started at the very beginning of his answer to Gandalf. Grew weary, was hasty. That was his ruin.
Yeah. And Gandalf is, if anything, attentive.
Yeah.
And he finally calls out Treebeard's use of the past tense in speaking to Saruman. It's almost like Gandalf was waiting for him to confess, to admit it.
I think he knows.
But in the end, he calls him out and asks if he's dead. And in a way, it will be easier for Treebeard to explain.
We squished him.
But no, he's not dead, unless maybe something happened to him in the last week.
It would be a real shame if something were to happen to him. I mean, he's just an old man wandering around in the wilderness, and did he pay his insurance policy before he left?
Anyway, he's been gone a week, but that specificity as to the date was only added in the second edition in 1965. Originally, he just said, "But he is gone." Yes, he is gone.
That's right.
He was released on August 15th. It's not in the chronology, but Hammered and Skull say this date was added to the Tale of Years starting in the 2004 edition, based on a note by Tolkien in one of his Czech copies of The Lord of the Rings.
I love that. I love how Hammond and Skull just constantly go in and tweak little things to make it more accurate. It's great. Treebeard starts to explain why it really wasn't a big deal that he let him go. I say, tell that to the Shire, Mr. Fangorn. You've got some splaining to do. Anyway, little left of him, right? And Wormtongue was even less, just a pale shadow.
He heads off Gandalf's objection. I know I said he'd keep it safe, but things changed.
Don't tell me I told... No, I know what I told you. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. He did keep him until he was safe, unable to harm anyone.
That's right. He apparently subscribes to the Prison Reform Coalition in Thranduil's realm, as he doesn't want to keep any living being actually gauged. Maybe you should have told me that before I asked you to be Saruman's jailer. Okay, Mr. Gandalf, but I don't like to keep living things caged. All right, then. I've got a different job for you.
Exactly. Why didn't you think of mentioning this? There's a great pair of dueling sentences here, right? A snake without fangs may crawl where he will, followed by Gandalf's observation that this snake wasn't entirely fangless. His voice still had power, especially since he knew Treebeard's soft spot.
Yep.
But Gandalf knows that what's done is done. There's no point getting after Treebeard now.
Nope.
So it's just a matter of what to do with Orthanc. Now that the former tenant has abandoned, it goes back to Aragorn.
That's right. Now, he holds off on deciding about the tower, but he does give the Valley of Isengard to the Ents. Now, he does attach one condition, but it's a very simple condition. Just keep people out of the tower. Interesting, since we know they're not very good at keeping people in. Hopefully, they'll be better at keeping people out. Hammond and Skull make a really astute observation here that we want to talk about. They point out that Aragorn just requires this light service in return, such as was required of the hobbits when granted the land that became the Shire. Now, if you remember, I think this is in the prologue, we read that they should keep the great bridge in repair and all other bridges and roads, speed the king's messengers, and acknowledge his lordship. Really low maintenance.
And they follow that up by noting that in both of these places, there's no suggestion that military service was required in return for land. And this, together with the fact that Denethor could not demand a certain number of soldiers from Rohan or the southern fiefs, nor that they should be led by the man of the highest rank, shows that Gondor and Arnor were not feudal states.
Correct. And that's a really good observation from Hammond and Skull. I mean, you almost think of, certainly of Gondor at least, as those being like, a feudal state where they could demand a levy of troops to come. Certainly not Rohan. They're an ally. But I have heard them described as like a vassal state. They're not. They're not a vassal state. That's not the relationship between these two. They're allies.
And to be honest, would you want to be after Numenor?
That's the thing. Exactly. Would the faithful even want to build a feudal system after seeing how Numenor dealt with the people of Middle-earth? I don't think so. I can't imagine.
Yes.
No, I don't see that happening. Yeah. Treebeard has quick beam give Aragorn the keys. He made Saruman lock the place up behind him. I hope he didn't sneak off to Home Depot to make copies first, but I guess we'll find that out.
Yeah. Aragorn thanks him and offers his well wishes, as well as the possibility of expansion into other lands.
That's right. You can go west of here now on the other side of the mountains, right?
Yep.
Don't worry about the Dunlendings. They'll just run away.
But Treebeard makes the sadly valid point that while forests may spread, the Ents cannot. There's no Entigs, no Entwives.
Yeah. So Aragorn, demonstrating his namesake of Estel, frankly, right here, suggests, hey, don't give up hope. Maybe searching in the new lands that were formerly unsafe to search in, that could be helpful. And, Treebeard shuts this down too, right? It's too far, and there are too many men, which brings us right back to Gandalf's observation about this new age and the influence that men are going to have over the forests.
Yeah. It occurs to me this different levels of hope between Aragorn and Treebeard. It kind of reminds me of Frodo and Sam, right?
Yes.
Sam being the ever hopeful. Yeah. There's still a chance, Treebeard.
Yeah. Come on, you might be able to find the Entwives. Treebeard's like, But we'll see later. He hasn't given up all hope. We'll see it at the end of this episode.
Yeah, exactly. Treebeard recalls his duties as host, offering them a place to stay and rest, along with a suggestion that Galadriel and Celeborn and the Galadhrim with them,
of course,
might want to go through Fangorn to get back to Lothlorien more quickly.
Yeah. So only Legolas and Gimli accept his offer to visit the forest of Fangorn. Gimli, as we noted, isn't exactly looking forward to the adventure, though. All right, fine, I'll go do this. Yeah.
The rest say that they have to leave, south or west.
That's right. Now, the west would be where Gandalf and the rest of the companions are heading, as well as Galadriel and Celeborn and Elrond and his sons, while Aragorn and his men are going to go south back to Minas Tirith, presumably stopping by Edoras to pick up Imrahil, Arwen, and Faramir. Yeah. And of course, that means it's time for this group of friends to say goodbye.
Yeah.
This is hard stuff.
It is. Legolas and Gimli headed east to Fangorn, Aragorn south to Minas Tirith, Gandalf and the hobbits west, and then north.
Yeah. And Aragorn gives them a name that, until now, they've not been called even once. The Fellowship of the Ring. Yeah.
Yeah, there have been references to a fellowship, lowercase, not associated with the ring, and more frequently, the company.
That's right. It was for a very, very long time, the company. Ever since the Field of Cormallen, there have been a few references to the 9 companions or to the companions of the ring, and those are capitalized C's. But aside from the title of the first volume, the Fellowship of the Ring is first used in this moment as it is breaking up. Oh, man.
Yeah. And in the other part that we had to skip, though, the fellowship is ending.
Yeah.
It was formed 8 months ago on December 18th.
Wow. It feels like a lot longer than 8 months, doesn't it?
It does. Aragorn expresses optimism that Legolas and Gimli will come back with the help they offered to him and Gondor.
Gimli, speaking for Legolas, which I find very interesting, by the way, says, we will come if our lords permit it. I love that he's actually able to speak for Legolas on that.
Yes, whether Legolas liked it or not.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to take him into the woods, so I'm going to commit you to this.
Yes. In Appendix A, we learn that they did indeed come.
Yeah.
Earlier, we read about Gimli becoming Lord of the Glittering Caves. After that line, we read that he and his people did great works in Gondor and Rohan.
Yeah.
For Minas Tirith, they forged gates of mithril and steel to replace those broken by the Witch King. Legolas, his friend, also brought south elves out of Greenwood, and they dwelt in Ithilien, and it became once again the fairest country in all the Westlands.
I love that. It is going to be neat to go to the appendices next season. I really am going to like that. Gimli says goodbye to the hobbits. This has got to be hard. But, he acknowledges something that he finally isn't going to be worried about their safety, right? I mean, that's always been Gimli's thing. I was worried about you little hobbits, and now I'm not worried about you, and you're safely going to get back to the Shire. Yeah.
we'll stay in touch, and I'm sure some of us will be able to meet up from time to time. But, and he's right, it's unlikely they'll all be able to get together again. This is goodbye, really.
Oh, I fear that we shall not all be gathered together ever again, and they won't. Man, that is heavy stuff. I mean, I know we talk about sort of the not all tears are an evil moment as being sort of the ending, and it is, of course. It's a different ending, but this is one, and it's, I think, sometimes easily overlooked. But this is the last time the 8 remaining members of the Fellowship are going to be together. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, do you want to continue reading, Alan?
Yeah. Then Treebeard said farewell to each of them in turn, and he bowed 3 times, slowly and with great reverence, to Celeborn and Galadriel. It is long, long since we met by stock or by stone. Avanimar vanimalion nostari, he said. It is sad that we should meet only thus at the ending, for the world is changing. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth, and I smell it in the air. I do not think we shall meet again. And Celeborn said, I do not know, eldest. But Galadriel said, Not in Middle-earth, nor until the lands that lie under the wave are lifted up again. Then in the willow meads of Saruman we may meet in the spring. Farewell. Last of all, Merry and Pippin said goodbye to the old Ent, and he grew gayer as he looked at them. Well, my merry folk, he said, will you drink another draught with me before you go? Indeed we will, they said, and he took them aside into the shade of one of the trees, and there they saw that a great stone jar had been set. And Treebeard filled 3 bowls, and they drank, and they saw his strange eyes looking at them over the rim of his bowl. Take care, he said, for you have already grown since I saw you last. And they laughed and drained their bowls. Well, goodbye, he said. And don't forget that if you hear any news of the Entwives in your land, you will send word to me. Then he waved his great hands to all the company and went off into the trees. The travelers now rode with more speed, and they made their way towards the Gap of Rohan, and Aragorn took leave of them at last, close to that very place where Pippin had looked into the stone of Orthanc. The hobbits were grieved at this parting, for Aragorn had never failed them, and he had been their guide through many perils. I wish we could have a stone that we could see all our friends in, said Pippin, and that we could speak to them from far away. Only one now remains that you could use, answered Aragorn, for you would not wish to see what the stone of Minas Tirith would show you. But the Palantir of Orthanc the king will keep to see what is passing in his realm, and what his servants are doing. For do not forget, Peregrine Took, that you are a knight of Gondor, and I do not release you from your service. You are going now on leave, but I may recall you. And remember, dear friends of the Shire, that my realm lies also in the north, and I shall come there one day. Oh, my heart.
Yeah, no.
All these goodbyes.
Yeah. So it's Treebeard's time to say goodbye in his own, not hasty way.
Yeah, that's right.
First, he bids farewell to Celeborn and Galadriel, using a beautiful Quenya phrase, Avanimar vanimalion nostari.
I love the way you rolled your R's, and now that was beautiful. In 1961, Tolkien wrote a letter to Rona Bear. Now, she'd sent in a number of questions, including apparently a question about this greeting. And in that letter, he actually translates this for us, saying that it means, "O beautiful ones, parents of beautiful children." Children.
Children, plural, yes. Now, there is a version, very well spotted, that plural there. You're as good as Gandalf at...
past tenses,
yeah,
plurals.
Past tenses, plurals.
You're not going to slip anything like that by me.
Exactly. Now, there is a version of the story in Unfinished Tales of Celeborn and Galadriel in which they have another child. Amroth is their son.
As in Dol Amroth, right.
Exactly, yes. But Christopher explains, saying, the text is much amended and it is not always possible to see what belongs to the time of composition of the manuscript and what is indefinitely later. This is the case with those references to Amroth that make him the son of Galadriel and Celeborn. Whenever these references were inserted, I think it is virtually certain that this was a new construction later than the writing of The Lord of the Rings. Had he been supposed to be their son when it was written, the fact would surely have been mentioned.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, with all the talk about Dol Amroth and having a son to be an heir to the kingdom, I mean, this would have been mentioned somewhere along the line. And Hammond and Skull agree, right? They suggest that Treebeard is simply referring to their descendants, not just their first generation children, or in this case, child, since their only child is Celebrian, who, by the way, sailed west some 500 years before.
Yep. And then we get the line that Jackson gave to Galadriel at the very start of the prologue to the film version there. She says in the film version, the world has changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Very, very close to Treebeard's words, yeah. It is. And it's interesting, I think, in the context of Treebeard saying it, it comes back to what we were just discussing about Treebeard maybe getting a sense of the fact that the Dominion of Men was going to have a serious effect on the trees and the Ents. And it's interesting, though, this isn't the only time I think that Jackson moves words around. I mean, it's a very common thing in adapting film. Yeah. You often merge characters and, eliminate certain characters, add others, and you try to keep, I guess, a certain authenticity in the dialogue by just copying words. Well, and Tolkien's dialogue is so amazing. And I'm thinking of, we just, not that long ago, Sarah and I were doing the chapter with Faramir and Eowyn, and Faramir talks about his dream of the drowning of Numenor. Well, in the films, that dream is given to Eowyn, and she's telling Aragorn about it, before the Battle of Helm's Deep. Or that other thing with Eowyn has to do with Gandalf. In the books, he's explaining to Eomer when she comes off the battle at the Pelennor Fields, and he's like, oh, you had horses, you had all this, what did she have? And it's the line that they gave to Wormtongue about the hutch to trammel some wild thing in. Yep. Very different context, the way it's delivered in the films, but there is something to be said about using that dialogue. It really does work. Right. At least it's authentic Tolkien dialogue. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, even Treebeard, Treebeard's lines got stolen here and given to Galadriel, but he got Tom Bombadil's lines in the extended edition. Yes. Basically the Old Man Willow incident. Yeah. Yes. There's a few things like that. Of course, Treebeard adds that they're also unlikely to meet again. Right? He knows the time of the elves is gone too. Not just his own time is limited. He knows their time is. They're going to be sailing west soon, which is interesting because Celeborn, he doesn't know. He goes, well, I don't know, eldest, whether we're going to meet again. But Galadriel says, no, you're right. We're not going to meet again. Refers to Beleriand, which was submerged at the end of the First Age. Yeah, this is one of those wonderful textual ruins that in the absence of having the Silmarillion, we would have no idea what's being talked about here. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's another one of those, Theoden being compared to Orome and his, in the Battle of the Gods, and the world was young. You're like, what now? Yeah. Or even you get it even in The Hobbit when they talk about the deep elves and the sea elves and the and the light elves and how they made these things and came back to Middle Earth. And, it's funny how much we know now. Yeah. Compared to what it would have been like reading this in the 50s or 60s. Would have been amazing, I got to admit. Note Celeborn calls Treebeard eldest. Just stirring that debate about pot again, man. Treebeard or Tom Bombadil. No, it's obviously Tom. Tom's the eldest. Yeah. But she's also suggesting the change. Arda remade, the possibility of the marring of Arda being fixed. Yes. And we read that at the very end of the Silmarillion. The last words of the Silmarillion. Here ends the Silmarillion. If it has passed from the high and the beautiful to darkness and ruin, that was of old the fate of Arda marred. And if any change shall come and the marring be amended, Manwë and Vardar may know, but they have not revealed it, and it is not declared in the dooms of Mandos. No. And then it also, knowingly or not, and I have to think it's knowingly, references the first line of Treebeard's song that he sings or chants really, with Merry and Pippin. In the willow meads of Tessaranan I walked in the spring. Ah, the sight and smell of the spring in Andasarion. And I said that was good. Yeah, and that whole poem is another one of these textual ruins because he talks about places in Beleriand he visited each season. And again,
cool.
we don't know that at the time.
I know. It's just like, what's this place? What's this place? I don't know. What's this place? Yeah.
So if anyone has trouble with Of the Realms of Beleriand chapter, this is one example where studying the geography of Beleriand is actually quite fruitful.
It's very useful. That's right. Yeah. That is absolutely right. Good point.
So now he says to the hobbits he spent so much time with Merry and Pippin, asking them if they'd like to have another drink of the Entraft before they go.
I love that he doesn't invite Sam and Frodo. Just Merry and Pippin. Sorry, you guys stay short, man. Now, Merry and Pippin are never likely to say no to a drink, let's be honest. They join him for one more round, and he, of course, observes that they've grown since the last time he saw them, which was 5 months ago. March 5th was the last time. And despite his comments to Aragorn about, it's too far, there are too many men, this is that bit where he doesn't completely abandon hope about the Entwives. Pass word. If you hear about the Entwives, pass word to me. Yeah, he's hopeful.
Although, for the first time when I was just rereading that bit, I wondered if that was a bit of putting on a front of hope to the Hobbit.
Maybe. No, that's a very good point.
Was he just sort of saying, look out for them, just to give them hope more than him? Even if he'd lost hope, he didn't at least...
That's interesting. That's not impossible either. I think you may be right, given the way he's spoken to Aragorn a little bit ago. Like, it's never going to happen. And because that would be the kind of thing Treebeard would do, right?
Right, exactly.
To give hope to the hobbits that, you might be able to do something to help us,
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
That only just occurred to me as we were reading it.
That happens a lot, right? As we're going through these and we're talking, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute. What about this? Yeah.
So then Treebeard heads off into the forest, and that's the last of
Last
Treebeard.
we see of him.
Yeah. And they all head south from Isengard, including the ones traveling west, because that's where they'll find the road to the Caverfra hunt.
Right.
And then that's where Aragorn says goodbye.
Yeah.
Right near Dol Baran, where Pippin looked, of course, into the Stone of Orthanc.
That's right. The hobbits are sad to see him go. I mean, he has gotten them through so much. I mean, right, he led them from Bree to Rivendell, and then he was in charge of the company again after Gandalf fell in Moria, all the way through until the company, broke up there at Parthgalen. And Pippin, and I can't blame him, thinks about the Palantiri and wishes they could have a bunch of them so we could talk to each other, Just stick around a few thousand years, Pip. We'll all have Palantiri in our pockets. And we can
exactly.
talk to anybody we want anytime.
For better or worse.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe you don't want these things, Pippin.
Exactly. Yeah. But of course, Aragorn crushes Pippin's dream. You've already looked at one too many of these stones, Pip.
That's right. You don't get to look at anymore. Even if we had them, you don't get one.
Yeah, you've had your fill.
Yeah.
Besides, there's only one left that's functional, and you don't want the burning fire that Denethor's old stone will show you.
No, you do not want that one. That's locked into one channel. And by the way, the other Palantir that's left, the only one that's actually useful, is the one that I need to do my job as king, which includes keeping my eye on you, Pip. You're still a knight. I haven't released you from your service. I've just given you very extended leave. And then he reminds them that, hey, don't forget, Arnor is also my realm, right? I'm the king of the reunited kingdom of Gondor and Arnor. This is a first. This is, not since Elendil had come did we have a realm like this. And one day I'll end up with the Shire, and he will, actually, in about 6 years, in Fourth Age 6. But we'll get to that some other time and when we get to the appendices. For now, let's have you pick up exactly where I left off.
Then Aragorn took leave of Celeborn and Galadriel, and the lady said to him, Elfstone, through darkness you have come to your hope, and have now all you desire. Use well the days. But Celeborn said, Kinsman, farewell. May your doom be other than mine, and your treasure remain with you to the end. With that they parted, and it was then the time of sunset. And when after a while they turned and looked back, they saw the King of the West sitting upon his horse, with his knights about him. And the falling sun shone upon them, and made all their harness to gleam like red gold. And the white mantle of Aragorn was turned to a flame. Then Aragorn took the green stone and held it up, and there came a green fire from his hand. Soon the dwindling company, following the Eisen, turned west and rode through the gap into the wastelands beyond, and then they turned northwards and passed over the borders of Dunland. The Dunlendings fled and hid themselves, for they were afraid of elvish folk, though few indeed ever came to their country. But the travellers did not heed them, for they were still a great company and were well provided with all that they needed, and they went on their way at their leisure, setting up their tents when they would. On the 6th day since their parting from the king, they journeyed through a wood climbing down from the hills at the feet of the misty mountains that now marched on their right hand.
Let's go back to the beginning of that. It's time for yet another important farewell. This time it's Aragorn to his grandparents-in-law, the Lord and Lady of Lothlorien.
Yep. Galadriel observes what we've spent the last few years watching, that he's gotten to his hope through a great deal of darkness, and that he has what he's always wanted.
Oh.
And then gives this quick reminder of his mortality. Use well the days.
Yeah. I'm sure Aragorn's got that in the back of his mind,
Yep.
Yes, he's going to have an extended life, a very long life, but he knows it will end, as opposed to the serial longevity of the elves. It's a very powerful reminder from Galadriel of his mortality. But Celeborn has something to say that's a bit enigmatic, and I know we're going to linger here for a while. May your doom be other than mine, and your treasure remain with you to the end. Now, on the surface, I think he's speaking about Galadriel as his treasure and Arwen as Aragorn's, right? He knows Galadriel's going to sail west and won't be staying with him until the end.
Yeah. Hammond and Skull point us to the first version of the abandoned epilogue, where 17 years later, Sam is telling Eleanor that there are still elves living in Lothlorien, including Celeborn. He may be sad, Sam explains. He's happy in his elvish way, I don't doubt. They can afford to wait, elves can. But the Tale of Years tells us that after the passing of Galadriel in a few years, Celeborn grew weary of his realm and went to Imladris to dwell with the sons of Elrond, that is his grandsons.
Right.
And there is no record of the day when at last he sought the Grey Havens.
That's true. And though there isn't a fixed date, we do know that it could not have been before Fourth Age 120. And that's because when Aragorn's final words to Arwen, he's talking about how she might still take a ship to the west. So there are still ships going. And Aragorn's treasure, coming back to this idea of may your treasure remain with you to the end. Aragorn's treasure, Arwen, may be parted from him when he dies, but in theory, at least, reunite with him wherever it is that men go after death. So maybe that's what Celeborn is saying here. May your treasure remain with you to the end. May you be able to stay with Arwen until your life ends and maybe even be reunited after.
Yeah. But, what else could it mean?
That's the thing. I think there are some other things, and I didn't want to make you responsible for saying these, so I literally didn't put these words in your mouth. I'm just going to say there's a part of me that thought maybe Lothlorien and Gondor, like the realms. But I think the other thing that crossed my mind is their kids. Celeborn's daughter, Celebrian, has been gone for 500 years. And maybe he's hoping Aragorn's kids won't be parted from him. I don't know. I really do think it's Galadriel and Arwen are the treasures. But yeah, I can't help but thinking about Celebrian, how that's got to hurt to have your daughter be gone for 500 years.
Yeah, yeah. I can't also help but think that term treasure is also used in the epilogue of the relationship between Sam and Frodo as well.
Oh my goodness, you're right, it is.
So it does seem to be, in that sense, always related to this separation and the potential of reuniting in the West.
Treasure remained with you then. So he knows Galadriel's leaving.
Yep.
But he also knows Arwen's going to have to endure his death. So he has to endure Galadriel leaving while Aragorn gets to have Arwen with him until he dies. Celeborn will be reunited with Galadriel because he'll just take the next ship over and it'll be fine. And they'll have until the end of Arda. But we don't know what happens with Aragorn and Arwen, so maybe it's like, may your treasure remain with you to then. May you be reunited after death.
But then what about this doom be other than mine?
Yeah.
Like, it's just another way of referring to the treasure remaining to the... It can't be referring to the doom of elves, so serial longevity, right? Because, of course, his doom is other than Celeborn.
Right,
of course.
Mortality and immortality. You can't be talking about that.
You can't wish for that. What's he wishing for? What doom is it that he's wishing will be different for Aragorn?
Right. What fate? What, because that's got to be the context that he means doom here. What fate of Aragorn is he saying? But I mean, it is preface to your treasure remain with you to the end. So it's my fate to be separated, right? It's my fate to be separated from Galadriel when she leaves. She's going to leave because the ring is powerless. I don't know why he doesn't just go with her. I mean, if you want your treasure to be with you to the end, just go with your treasure when she gets on the boat, man. There's got to be an extra seat. What's keeping you here?
Yeah, I don't know.
What's keeping you here? I don't know. It is sort of an enigmatic line. I do think at the end of the day, he is talking about Arwen and Galadriel, clearly. But
yeah, I think so. And the same thing with Frodo and Sam, right?
Yes,
Eleanor's referring to
very
Frodo
much.
as Sam's treasure. It's just you've been apart. You don't want to be apart from him anymore. So that's
absolutely not. That's a good catch, by the way. I'd forgotten about that in the epilogue, but you're 100% right. Yeah, I mean, we don't know what happens with men beyond the circles of the world. You know, we know they have a purpose. We know they have that they exist beyond the circles of the world. They don't. It's not like annihilation,
right?
But are they going to be reunited? Are they going to be together? I don't know.
I mean, Celeborn certainly doesn't know, so it's not like Celeborn has some secret. Yeah, yeah.
Except that his treasure will remain with him to the end, in the sense that when he gets over to Valinor, they will be together till the end of Arda. This is just such one of those lines that you're like, I really want to sit down and talk with Tolkien. What really did you mean by this? I mean, I think we can pick at it and we can talk about various possibilities, but are we ever going to know exactly what he meant precisely by it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's Galadriel and Arwen, but I just can't quite pinpoint what he means, because they are going to be together. Just going to be 500 years apart, which is like, what, a week in Elvish time? I mean, I don't know about you, James, but if your wife goes away for a week, it's not the end of the world, right? You live. I mean, maybe your laundry's a mess. Maybe you're just eating DoorDash all the time. I have no idea about your personal life, but I'm just saying it's all right, you know? Yeah, 500 years, whatever. So they part, and as Aragorn rides off into the sunset, and man, what a gorgeous visual that is. What a stunningly gorgeous visual it is. He holds up the Elessar, and it's this green fire in his hand. Oh, it's such a beautiful moment. And Appendix B just says they take leave of the King of the West at sunset. But the chronology has more to say, doesn't it, James?
Yeah. They visit Treebeard and learn of the release of Saruman and Wormtongue. Legolas and Gimli say farewell and go north through Fangorn. Mm-hmm. The rest of the company proceed to Dol Baran. At sunset, Aragorn says farewell on the west margin of Gondor. The rest of the company go on over the Isen. They then ride northward, passing through the eastern edge of Dunland. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly where the text says we're all headed, right? Following the river, through the gap, then north and into Dunland.
Over the river and through the gap, north and into Dunland. All right, sorry. Not that you would know that this is happening from the Dunlandings, right? Because they're just hiding from the company. They want nothing to do with these people. Not that the company themselves would have paid much attention, even if the Dunlandings came out with a welcoming committee. I mean, there's still plenty of them. They have the entire contingent of the Galadrim. They are well armed and equipped. I don't think they've got anything to worry about.
Yep. They do what they do, camping wherever they want.
That's right. I'm just going to, right here looks good. Dunlandings are like, yeah, fine, go ahead. We're out. Yeah.
So 6 days after Aragorn left, so August 28th, they're headed through a forest that's coming down from the mountain. They're now directly to the east. The mountains that are directly to their east. Yeah,
because they're on the west.
You're right. Yeah. They're on the west side of the mountains, yep. And they're about to meet an old friend.
If you want to call him that, yeah.
So, Alan, why don't you introduce us to that old friend?
I think I will. As they came out again into the open country at sundown, they overtook an old man leaning on a staff, and he was clothed in rags of gray or dirty white. And at his heels went another beggar, slouching and whining. "Well, Saruman," said Gandalf, "where are you going?" "What is that to you?" he answered. "Will you still order my goings? And are you not content with my ruin?" "You know the answers," said Gandalf. "No and no. But in any case, the time of my labours now draws to an end. The king has taken on the burden. If you had waited at Orthanc, you would have seen him, and he would have shown you wisdom and mercy. Then all the more reason to have left sooner, said Saruman, for I desire neither of him. Indeed, if you wish for an answer to your first question, I am seeking a way out of his realm. Then once more you're going the wrong way, said Gandalf, and I see no hope in your journey. But will you scorn our help? For we offer it to you. To me, said Saruman. Nay, pray do not smile at me. I prefer your frowns. And as for the lady here, I do not trust her. She always hated me and schemed for your part. I do not doubt that she has brought you this way to have the pleasure of gloating over my poverty. Had I been warned of your pursuit, I would have denied you the pleasure. Saruman, said Galadriel, we have other errands and other cares that seem to us more urgent than hunting for you. Say rather that you were overtaken by good fortune, for now you have a last chance. If it be truly the last, I am glad, said Saruman, for I shall be spared the trouble of refusing it again. All my hopes are ruined, but I would not share yours, if you have any. For a moment his eyes kindled. Go, he said. I did not spend long study on these matters for naught. You have doomed yourselves, and you know it. And it will afford me some comfort as I wander, to think that you pulled down your own house when you destroyed mine. And now what ship will bear you back across so wide a sea? He mocked. It will be a grey ship and full of ghosts. He laughed, but his voice was cracked and hideous.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and that tells us so much.
It does. Now, in the first edition, this opening bit read, after they had passed by Dunland and were come to places where few folk dwelt, and even birds and beasts were seldom to be seen, they journeyed into open country. They overtook an old man.
That's right. Now, this old man is shabbily dressed, right? Rags, dirty white, another beggar at his heels. But Gandalf recognizes him immediately and calls out to Saruman, asking him where he's going. Saruman, just as friendly as he was the last time they chatted about 6 months ago on March 5th, responds with utter contempt, falsely suggesting that Gandalf will tell him where to go. Which I've got ideas, but yeah.
Good thing you weren't there then.
That's right.
The conversation continues with Gandalf suggesting that had Saruman waited, Aragorn would have shown him both wisdom and mercy.
Yeah.
This fits. Recall he showed mercy even to the Easterlings.
That's true.
But wow, Saruman just isn't having it. I desire neither of him.
He's so bitter, man. I love it. Yeah.
In fact, you want to know where I'm going. I'm trying to leave his country.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I mean, his realm goes pretty far north this side of the Misty Mountains. You'd have been better off going towards Fangorn. Like, when you left Orthanc, you went the wrong way, man. You should have gone towards maybe Mirkwood or headed out towards the Easterlings, because you're not going to be leaving Arnor anytime soon.
And interestingly, Gandalf offers to help Saruman.
He's so kind.
But Saruman, as expected, rejects it with scorn. And he calls out Galadriel as having schemed on behalf of Gandalf, suggesting that she brought the whole company this way just so they could laugh at Paul's. It's all making it about him all the time.
Exactly. He's such a narcissist, right? Yeah. Oh, you guys came all this way just to laugh at me. You've got to be kidding me, right? Galadriel doesn't lash out or get mad at him for this. I would have mocked him incessantly. But she points out the obvious. Look, we have better things to do than try to track you down in the wilderness. But hey, we're here. It's another chance for you to accept our help. Look, as much as we're giving him a hard time right now and as much as he deserves one, keep in mind, folks, Saruman really was once great and was once good. He wasn't always the bad guy of this story. I'm sure there's a part of both Galadriel and Gandalf that really want to see him repent and be restored again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But Saruman continues to reject any and all offerings of assistance with the usual style and rhetoric. Finally, he tells them to leave before reminding them that they have doomed themselves.
I love that. He's
referring here to the destruction of the One Ring, which has meant the loss of the power of the 3 Elven rings.
That's right.
Of course, he takes comfort in this. After all,
Yeah.
if I've been brought down, at least I could be happy to see you brought yourselves down too.
Exactly. I mean, this is like, I'm miserable, but, a little bit of schadenfreude wouldn't hurt, I wouldn't mind seeing you be miserable too.
Yep.
And it ends with this creepy reference to Galadriel's song as the company left Lorien. Sad and sweet was the sound of her voice in the cool, clear air. O Lorien, too long I have dwelt upon this hither shore, and in a fading crown have twined the golden Eleanor. But if of ships I now should sing, what ship would come to me? What ship would bear me ever back across so wide a sea?
And we couldn't find any reference at all to how or why Saruman would know either A, that Galadriel is going to sail to the west,
right,
or B, the words of her song.
I know. It's creepy that he knows this.
Maybe Treebeard found out for him. I don't know. But
it's
he
the
mocks
Krebine. The Krebine we're over listening.
Yeah, exactly. But Saruman mocks it even more. A ghost ship, he says, laughing.
But I really do want to linger on this a little bit. His voice was cracked and hideous. I think his skill with his voice is gone, right? We talked about this a little bit off mic, that as I was sort of trying to develop what my voice was going to sound like for this guy this time around, he doesn't sound like he did the last time, all honey-tongued and persuasive. And, he's still argumentative, and he's still, but he speaks differently. If you notice, he's just insulting the whole time, which he only resorted to when he sort of lost the ability to persuade with his voice. He was very kind. Oh, why are we, long have you been my neighbor and friend, Theoden King? And, but only when it didn't work did he talk about, the rats on the floor and and all the insults. He throws those out only as a sort of last resort, but that's the only resort he's got now.
He's lost his rizz. He's lost
his rizz. That's right. He lost his rizz for sure. But yeah, I think the fact that his voice was cracked and hideous is so opposite of this description of his voice that we got before, about how everybody his voice was so good, you just wanted to listen to him.
Yep.
Everything he said was persuasive because it came out in that voice. I think now that's all gone. And it's, we don't get to ever see exactly how he ended up taking power in the Shire, but it was through the taking of power rather than through persuasion. It was just pure force. At least that's the way I'm thinking of it. He's just, no power and just a nasty old man. Saruman, we have other errands and other cares that seem to us more urgent than hunting for you. Specifically, answering a question from the mailbag. James, what does Barlowman have for us today?
Well, Chris W. writes in with a question that's very apropos of our discussion of this transition from the elves and into the dominion of men.
Mm-hmm.
Chris asks, in the Third Age, the elves are diminishing. To what extent do you think elves are still creating, developing, researching, or otherwise progressing as a society and culture? Chris points out that just in the past 100 years, so much has changed in science, industry, and the arts in the primary world.
Mm-hmm.
Before asking, do you think elves are composing new music, writing new great works of literature, making advances in tactical warfare and scientific research? Or do you think they've circled the wagons, settled in their rut, and are content to keep things more or less the way they are? Alan.
I'm not sure there's like an actual answer to this in terms of like, oh, well, we can find this piece of text or that piece of text. So I think we're going to have to speculate at least about some of this. But let's go through it because he talks about several different things, and I think the answer is different for different elements of the question. On the arts front, right, I don't see any reason why they're not composing new music and writing new works of literature. But I would suggest they're probably not breaking a lot of new ground stylistically. That is, the elves are going to compose a poem or a song about a Third Age event, right? I mean, they're probably bards working on a song about the destruction of the ring even now. But it's not going to be significantly different to how a poem or song about a First Age event would sound. I mean, maybe a little bit of language change, but not a radically different style, not a different genre. But I think a question about their cultural achievements is vastly different from the last part of your question, Chris. Are they making advances in scientific research? I think at one point they very much were doing exactly that. Just ask Celebrimbor, but that didn't turn out so well. Tolkien writes in letter 153, it's a draft to Peter Hastings, the particular branch of the High Elves concerned, the Noldor or Lore Masters, were always on the side of science and technology, as we should call it. They wanted to have the knowledge that Sauron genuinely had, and those of Eregion refused the warnings of Gil-galad and Elrond. The particular desire of the Eregion elves, an allegory, if you like, of a love of machinery and technical devices, is also symbolized by their special friendship with the dwarves of Moria. But I've got to imagine that Sauron's betrayal, his creation of the One Ring, and, I don't know, waging war on Eregion and turning Celebrimbor into a pincushion probably cured them of much of this desire to make scientific advancements. James, what do you think on that front?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the cultural advances, I completely agree with you that the elves probably saw the high point of culture as being in the past. Yeah. They were still continuing to tell stories, but in terms of really innovating in that way, I'm sure that they were very much of the opinion that
the old forms worked just fine.
Exactly. Now, the interesting thing, I mean, the whole Noldorian project, I guess, in some ways, from Fëanor to Celebrimbor, in some senses is a really interesting contrast to that, because it shows that those weren't just the good old days. There were mistakes made. Even
mistakes were made.
And I mean, I certainly think from the elves' point of view, and even Tolkien's point of view, there would have been an opinion that things should not continue in that progression, particularly with regard to the sort of coercive aspects of the technology. This is something that I know Christopher talks a lot about in interviews, or talked a lot about in interviews and so on, that his father's primary concern with the machine was the coercive aspects of it. Yes. And that's why, in a sense, the ring was the ultimate machine in that sense, right? Because it was so much about coercion. And so I think there were plenty of lessons that the elves learned that I suspect led to them not really pursuing much. And they knew they were fading, so there was very much
true.
This
There's
sense.
An awareness of that. So why pour into these efforts when you'd rather spend your time writing songs, doing cultural things rather than, say, scientific things?
Right, yeah.
He also brings up something else that I hadn't really thought of, and it was tactical warfare. We're not shown any specific examples, but then again, that is to say, we're not shown any specific examples of their changing tactical warfare. But we also don't see men making significant changes in battlefield technology or tactics. So if we're comparing men and elves, for instance, I mean, the whole period is very static in a way, with the Last Alliance looking a lot like the Pelennor in terms of tactics and such. But I'd say it works. I mean, today's episode, we're reminded that a much smaller force of Galadhrim held off 3 attacks from Dol Guldur. So they still know how to fight, and that's good enough.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, that when that's discussed, those 3 attacks, 2 words that come up are valor and power.
Yeah.
And they're not comments on the technology at all, right?
No.
The valor has to do with...
Or even the strategy, just the character.
Well, and the power presumably is one of the 3 rings. So it's interesting that it's not at all about their advances militarily, other than just sort of their bravery and the fact they've still got one of the 3 rings.
That's
of
true.
Power.
That's
multiple.
A very good point.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, though, the elves very much have settled into what they know and love, right? They know they're fading, and their tendency is to preserve. Letter number 181, Tolkien explains this. He says, the elvish weakness is naturally to regret the past and to become unwilling to face change, as if a man were to hate a very long book still going on and wished to settle down in a favorite chapter. Hence they fell in a measure to Sauron's deceits. They desired some power over things as they are, which is quite distinct from art, to make their particular will to preservation effective, to arrest change and keep things always fresh and fair.
It's interesting that Tolkien criticizes their resistance to change in light of what
his
we've
own
been
sort
saying.
of Luddite tendencies.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. The 2 sides of the coin, I guess.
Yeah.
And in letter 131, drink up everyone.
Yes.
Tolkien writes that the elves wanted to have their cake without eating it. They wanted the peace and bliss and perfect memory of the West, and yet to remain on the ordinary earth where their prestige as the highest people, above wild elves, dwarves, and men, was greater than at the bottom of the hierarchy of Valinor.
Big fish in a small pond. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Thus they became obsessed with fading, the mode in which the changes of time, the law of the world under the sun, was perceived by them. They became sad, and their art, shall we say, antiquarian.
Oh.
And their efforts all really are kind of embalming. Strong word there.
That is a strong word, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Even though they also retained the old motive of their kind, the adornment of earth, and the healing of its hurts.
You know, you pointed that out, embalming. That's a lot more than just mere preservation.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way of putting it. This sort of, I mean, there's certainly a negative connotation to it.
Fighting against the natural
right.
order in a way.
Yeah, you're
right?
trying to prevent the decay that is just part of, in this case, death.
Right.
But, this is big fish in a small pond. You don't want to go back to Valinor because there you're going to be at the bottom of the totem pole. Over here, you're at the top. And wow, this idea about their art, shall we say, antiquarian. Well, that answers that question. You know, there are still making art, but it's going to be very much in the style of first stage art. It's not going to look any different.
It's just fascinating to me that Tolkien is writing about this as a critic. Like he's presenting it as a negative,
as a weakness, as an absolute criticism,
which is not what I would have necessarily guessed.
I know he doesn't strike you as somebody who's that is interesting. That's a good question. I mean, I think we don't. That's why I said that we had to speculate a lot because, of course, there's no examples either way of their tactical warfare or scientific research. So we just have to sort of speculate. But given what we know about how Tolkien viewed the machine, I think it's safe to say that, the rest of the elves knew what they were doing. It was those Eregion elves, those pesky Eregion elves and, Celebrimbor who wanted more knowledge. And that was actually, in this case, a bad thing. So, yeah. Good discussion, though. A lot of fun. But, folks, that wraps it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony podcast. Still, please be sure to come back again next week when Saruman continues to give us all a lesson on how to win friends and influence people.
One thief deserves another. Folks, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP. Editor Jordan Rennells, Barliman Becca Davis, Social Media Manager Casey Hilsey, Event and Patreon Community Coordinator Katie McKenna, graphic artist Megan Collins, and website guru Phil Dean.
That's right. And please take a minute to check out the prancingponypodcast.com. That's where you'll find show notes, outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get PPP merch, including chapter-specific artwork for Megan.
Please take a moment to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony podcast has always been about the books. So if you're interested in a book we've mentioned on the show, you'll find a link for it in our library. We get a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed we do, but we also want to thank our patrons at the Kierdance contribution tier. I'll start with DeMay in Alaska, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Zaksu in Illinois, Brian in Texas, Sarah in New Jersey, and Joshua in Massachusetts.
There's also Lucy in Texas, Erica in Texas, Carson in Oklahoma, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Anne in Kentucky, Sean in New Jersey, Mason in California, Maureen from Massachusetts, John in Japan, Olivia in London, Robert in Arizona, Nick in Wisconsin, Lewis in South Carolina, Thomas in Germany, Craig in California, Bailey in Texas, and Kevin in Massachusetts. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed, thank you.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony podcast. Subscribe now through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and, well, most of all, your suggestions for a reliable Middle-earth jailer to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. You can visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Please be sure to still email the question to Barliman, though. Even though Barliman's been a lot more reliable lately, there's still a lot of mail to sort through. We'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Kinsman, farewell. May your treasure remain with you to the end.